Ahoy mateys! We be reviewing the Peter McKinnon variable ND filter set today. Is it worth trading $249 worth of me treasure for? Today, we be setting sail to find out.
You get it? Because Pete likes pirates. Before we get into today, first off, a huge thank you to PolarPro for sending over this variable ND filter set. This is the 2 to 5 stop Peter McKinnon variable ND filter, and I've been oogling it online for a while. I wasn't cool enough to get the combo pack with the 6 to 9 stop ND filter, but we got the 2 to 5 stop. I'm pretty stoked. Hey, if this video helps you out at all, maybe you think about hitting that like button, or maybe you think about subscribing for more videos like this. Or if you're really feeling wild, maybe you head over to the first link in the description, pick yourself up a Be a Good Human shirt and support the channel. All excellent decisions. Okay, for those of you that haven't watched my ND filter video, which click here for that. Basically, when controlling your exposure, or the amount of light that enters the lens, you have 3 controls: your aperture, your shutter speed, and your ISO. Aperture is the size of the hole, shutter speed is how long the hole is open, and ISO is how sensitive the sensor is to light. Again, click there, go check out that video. It'll explain a bit more. The problem with video though is that if you're following that 180 rule, your shutter speed gets locked in place. So if you're shooting 24 frames a second, you're gonna want your shutter speed to be 1/48th or 1/50th if that's the closest your camera can do. If you're at 30 frames a second, your shutter speed will be 1/60th of a second. If you're at 60 frames, 1/20th, and so on. You get the idea. But now with that shutter speed locked in, you might find yourself in a position where you have too much light. On a bright sunny day, you might be outside all the way down at ISO 100, but you want your lens at something like 2.8, which is letting in a ton of light, and your shutter speed is locked at 1/50th. You look down and you go, this is crazy bright, way overexposed. So what other tools can you use to reduce the amount of light coming through your lens? ND filters, like sunglasses for your camera. It's the best way to think about it, really. If you were to have a big enough sunglass and you put it in front of your lens, that would reduce how much light goes into your camera, right? That's basically what an ND filter is. You pop them on the front of your lens and boom, less light. The problem though, is that if you have solid stopped ND filters like this, you have a bunch of different ND filters at different levels of darkness or different levels of reduction of light. So if there's a lot of light, you put on that really dark ND filter to get the right exposure, but then the sun goes behind a cloud, it gets darker and you go, oh crap, I have to take that one off. I have to switch, I have to go find this one, put that one on. It's a hassle. So in come variable ND filters. And basically how a variable ND filter works is it's actually 2 polarizing filters, but as you twist them, it gets darker and darker and darker, less light one way, more light the other way. So variable ND filters are amazing, but there's one big problem with variable ND filters, and usually they suck. Most of them will end up looking terrible and kind of unusable because as you turn them, you'll end up with weird dark spots in the corner, or if you turn too far, you get cross polarization, so there's a big dark X in the middle of your frame. And all of that is even accentuated more at wider angles, like 24, like 20, all the way down to 16 millimeters. The wider you go, the more you see that craziness. And because of all that weirdness, if you're gonna go the route of a variable ND filter, you wanna go big. You wanna go with something like this. PolarPro's variable ND filter with Peter McKinnon. This thing is, it's impressively boxed. It's not a cheap filter. I think this filter alone is $249, which I know sounds crazy, but you're only gonna need one of these filters, maybe 2 if you're getting the, see the combo pack has the 6 to 9 stop filter there. This is just the 2 to 5 stop ND filter. They give you a rubber case over the ND filter to protect it, but also so that you can take it like this and you can just put it straight onto your lens without actually touching the filter, and then peel that off. This whole unboxing process is pretty impressive. They really went all out on everything. Ooh, there's more back here. So there's a padded ND filter case, so you can just have a nice soft case with you. We've got ourselves a lens cloth, but then also a hard magnetic case to put it in. And then on top of that, they give you the rubber, I think it's called the Defender cover? Don't quote me on that. But it's a rubber lens cap of sorts. So I can have that on there, and then I can just plop this over it, toss this in my bag with the filters still on my lens. Normally, I always take my ND filters off, but it's nice that it's got this on there. Okay, so what makes this ND filter so amazing? Why is it $250 for one ND filter. First up, again, is that variable element. So I can go down here and I'm at 2 stops, and all I do is twist this outer ring and boom, I'm at 5 stops. So 2 to 5 stop ND filter. All 4 of those stops are in here, from 2, 3, 4, 5. But the reason that it can do it so well, and it can go all the way down to 16 millimeters without any vignetting, is the glass element. These polarizers are a super high quality fused quartz glass, which is why you don't see that weird vignetting at the corners or those crazy X's. The other thing on the filter that keeps you from doing that is the hard stop. So when I go all the way to 5, it stops. I'm gonna go down to 2, it stops. And those hard stops are key because I don't have to be staring at it and trying to see exactly what I'm doing. I can just look at my screen, looking at this, checking my exposure, and just say brighter, 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 darker, darker, darker. Without those hard stops, a lot of the cheaper ND filters, they'll just keep spinning around. So you'd be going darker, 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 and then all of a sudden it goes rup, 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 and then it's bright again. You have to bring it back, and it's a little goofy. Having hard stops on a variable ND filter, really helpful. As variable ND filters go, this is definitely the nicest that I've ever owned. This is a super impressive variable ND filter. So yes, this is the best ND filter that I've ever owned, but there's 2 more things that we need to talk about. One is it comes in multiple sizes, so which size should you get? And 2 is it comes in 2 different versions, a 2 to 5 stop like I have, and a 6 to 9 stop, so a much darker variable ND filter. Now for most people, if you're shooting maybe an f4 lens or higher, the 2 to 5 stop is gonna be great for you. But for other people that wanna shoot really fast lenses, you want that aperture wide open, or maybe you're shooting in a log profile that's gonna automatically bump your ISO up, that's where you wanna look into that 6 to 9 stop variable ND filter. Then back to the sizes, the size that you wanna get is based on your largest lens. So for me, that's a 24 to 70 2.8, which is an 82 millimeter lens opening. It's the big boy. But then what happens when I wanna hook on a 35 millimeter prime, and now I only have a 72 millimeter opening? That's where step-up rings come in. Step-up rings look like this. This is a 72 millimeter to 82 millimeter step-up ring. And basically what it's doing is it screws onto my 72 millimeter lens. And then once it's on there like that, now it's giving me an 82 millimeter thread. So now I can take this 82 millimeter filter, screw it on there, and boom, 72 millimeter lens with an 82 millimeter filter. So when you're figuring out which size to buy the largest, that either the lens that you have right now, or maybe you're looking at a new lens. Maybe you're looking at something like an L series on the Canon or a G Master on the Sony, and that opening is the larger opening. Buy that ND filter, because then that ND filter will work with all my other lenses as long as I have that step-up ring. Step-up rings are super helpful. So again, I know that filter is $250, but this $250 filter, because of step-up rings, are gonna be able to work with all my lenses. And in all my testing so far with this thing, it's super impressive. This is what I had on my camera the other day when I was filming Morgan Rollerblade while I was on Rollerblade, talking to you guys about filming from rollerblades. I was filming with this, and I was able to get my settings dialed in, and then as any light changed, I would just change my exposure just by spinning the ND filter. That is super useful. I didn't have to change my aperture, I didn't have to change anything like that, didn't have to run my shutter speed up and get a wonky looking image. I was able to just go darker, brighter. That's it. So there it is, guys, the Peter McKinnon variable ND filter. Shiver me timbers. Salty dog? Pete likes pirates though, and I like Pete's ND filter. I'll see you guys soon.